You're watching the Prodigious Preparation with Jason LUTTRELL. Here's what we're looking at today.
This is the current scene at West Walnut Street in Johnson City, Tennessee as construction is underway. The $22 million project calls for the renovation of the connecting street between ETSU's main campus and downtown Johnson City. The current stage is mainly stormwater and infrastructure renovation. However, the early stages have seen the departure of some businesses already. These departures include the former ETSU bookstore as well as the popular Peggy Ann Bakery that closed in March. One business that has departed is also seeing some of the first noticeable renovation on West Walnut Street. The popular Poor Richard's campus restaurant that was shut down in 2017 is seeing current renovation as it has received $800,000 in budget. According to the Johnson City Press, the building will be divided into 3 commercial spaces, with one tenant possibly being a Pizza Hut. But where did the beginning of this project come from, and what were its motives? Johnson City Mayor Joe Wise called in to share his thoughts.
I served on the city's regional planning commission and also chaired the West Walnut Street Task Force, which was an initiation that came out of the planning commission. A number of years ago, probably about a decade ago, the Johnson City Chamber of Commerce had purchased the mill building on Walnut Street, and they had a vision for that property to be converted into the uses we now see. But unfortunately, they bought it, and then we had this huge economic downturn. And in the context of that economic downturn, that initial vision didn't materialize. And at one point, somebody had actually sought to purchase the mill and was in the process of requesting that the city approve a rezoning so that they could tear the mill down and build apartments on that site. I think what many of us on the Planning Commission felt at the time when we were being asked, is it an appropriate land use to rezone this from an industrial use that would have been what the mill required to something residential. And the truth was, it was an appropriate land use. It just maybe wasn't the ideal land use, right? What we set about doing was, rather than sitting around waiting for the right, hoping that somebody comes along and asks the right question, we set about asking, what are the questions we want to be asking about? How do we want to drive the development of that corridor between ETSU and downtown? And what do we want to see it look like? Let's not wait to see what's going to just happen accidentally or just by chance. And so the Walnut Street Task Force is what came out of that desire. And so it was comprised of business owners along Walnut Street, residents from the Tree Streets, representatives from the university, representatives from the chamber, downtown planning commission. But it was a pretty wide group of people and really developed what was broad objectives for that corridor.
Mayor Wise spoke on how the plan is to reimagine the corridor from a historically industrial area to an urban feel. The estimated 10 to 15-year project hopes to see a more pedestrian-friendly area as well as creating more opportunities for business to conduct commerce. According to the master plan provided by johnsоncity.org, these are some of the goals of the redevelopment. The plan calls for restricted access from University Parkway onto West Walnut Street, removing the southbound left turn lane onto the corridor. This turning movement was identified as causing the most incidents at the intersection and was one of the most voiced complaints by stakeholders in regard to the corridor's existing infrastructure, as well as improvements to the drainage system within the study area and connections to Brush Creek will help alleviate stormwater issues in the area. The West Walnut Corridor Master Plan relocates the overhead utilities serving the northern West Walnut properties underground to an easement located along State of Franklin to make the corridor more accessible and safer for pedestrians while becoming more appealing for redevelopment. The redevelopment plans focus on making an accessible area for businesses, and pedestrian-friendly roadways introduces the possibility to bring in many new businesses to that area. One business specialization that will continue to grow and benefit off this plan is the food industry. With construction underway and redevelopment in motion, what does that mean for food businesses planning to stay on the corridor? Firehouse Restaurant COO Justin Seaton sat down in an interview to share his thoughts on the redevelopment and what that means for their future as well as lasting effects it will have on the community.
So it's something that has been talked about for many, many years. Walnut Street has always been on the fringe of downtown, and a lot of attention, rightfully so, has been given to downtown because cities that have a strong downtown have I think, strong sense of community and culture, and it's kind of a hub for things that are going on. Walnut Street has always been talked about as the connecting point between ETSU and downtown. And so when they decided to go ahead and move forward with the redevelopment, which was a couple of years ago, for us, it's very exciting because we've been on Walnut Street now for 40 years. And it's always been good to see new businesses come to Walnut Street. We're definitely staying on Walnut Street. We'll always have a presence on Walnut Street. You know, unfortunately, with what happened with COVID 2 years ago and all of the chaos that has caused, that unfortunately started a negative trend in business, created challenges for all businesses, not just businesses, but people and families in general. And with the added uncertainty that construction sometimes brings, people don't necessarily love to get out and get into construction. So again, making it more pedestrian friendly, making it a connecting piece between downtown and ETSU, you know, draws more people here. And you know, we believe that it's going to be the most pedestrian friendly and one of the best streets to walk on, you know, with your family and come down for the afternoon and go to a restaurant, go get dessert, go to one of the bakeries, visit the mill, that type of thing. It's going to be really great.
SEATON and the Firehouse restaurant team are optimistic about their future on West Walnut Street post-redevelopment. Mayor Wise and SEATON both shared how they believe the renovations to the corridor will make the street more pedestrian-friendly and walkable. The revitalized road will feature two 11-foot drive lanes, a 7-foot parking lane, a 2-foot striped buffer, an 8-foot two-way bike lane, two 9-foot sidewalks with tree wells, and two frontage zones to provide wider sidewalks. These images were created in the Beyond Typical's urban planning simulation software to help provide a more realistic idea of what the corridor could look like. The corridor is set to reimagine what was previously known as an industrial-specific section into a unique segment to draw the community and visitors to the businesses located along the corridor. This creates potential opportunities for unique food retailers and other businesses alike to make use of this opportunity. The city has kept a close eye on how to make the corridor an engaging and lively section of town. Executive Director of Johnson City Development Authority and Connect Downtown Johnson City, TISH Oldham, shared what an engaging corridor can mean for those living in Johnson City as well as those commuting.
One of the things that I try to do, let me tell you what I try to make sure that I'm in there seeing the businesses and that I'm understanding what's happening. So I'll go grab lunch somewhere, go talk to somebody and just try to hear what's going on. I think one of the biggest things that occurs whenever you have construction occurring is you possibly have a reduction in business. You want to retain the businesses that you have. But on the other hand, you do have businesses that have been there for nearly a century, like Harmon Ice. And then you do have relocations because you might put a road somewhere, for example, that at the time no one ever would have imagined a road would be there, but as your city grows, you need to make that connection. And so you want to try to retain and make sure that you're not displacing a business. But I do expect that you're going to be creating a more pedestrian corridor through there. We want people to pause, think about walking down the street to go with a couple of friends, go have something to eat, go have a cup of coffee, or even think about leaving their car at home and parking there and walking to class or walking to downtown. And so we start making pedestrian pathways. But really what we want them to do still is stop and think about going from lunch at ETSU or somewhere and having a few minutes to escape. But as you look at places that are through there and you have unique businesses to a community, that is going to draw people to our area differently because every community has a McDonald's, and McDonald's are important places in the life of a community. But as we look at why people come to a community, they love to go back to their favorite coffee shop, or they'll drive 20 minutes out of their way to come to their favorite barbecue spot because it's the only one that does just this. That's what brings people back, is something that's unique. Or the Shamrock, for example, and they'll come into town and they'll want to go to the Shamrock for a milkshake. That's just one of the things that it becomes part of that community. But a place like the Shamrock also becomes that corner spot where people see one another, have conversations. Without that, there are certain things that in a community might not happen, certain conversations that might not occur, and so it's a touch point within the community. And I think those are the types of experiences that we need to have going up and down that corridor.
TISH believes that the redevelopment and reimagining of the corridor is essential for long-term success, not being only from a business standpoint, but creating a sense of community and providing what are known as third spaces to students, residents, and those visiting Johnson City. Providing somewhere for people to stop and grab something to eat, or for a student to get off campus to get some work done, is very important. With businesses like Firehouse Restaurant and their dedication to West Walnut Street, and city officials such as Mayor Wise and JCDA Executive Director Tish believing in the plan provides a great future for Johnson City.